Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. Today, we're checking out an incredibly accurate recreation of a vintage tape echo and reverb from the mid-1970s. Let's get started. Today we're checking out the Galaxy pedal from Universal Audio, the latest in their UA Effects pedal line. The Galaxy is designed to specifically and very accurately recreate the Roland Space Echo from the 1970s. Now, the Space Echo is a unique tape-based echo machine. It's one of the two sort of holy grail tape echoes along with the Echoplex. But the Space Echo is a little different in that instead of having a single moving head that you adjust to change the delay time, it actually had three different heads in it. And by selecting different combinations of those heads, you could get rhythmic effects. And there's also a built-in spring reverb. So it really turns it into sort of an ambience generator, if you will. And all of that, again, is recreated in the Galaxy along with some other features as well. And one of those that's very important is that the original Space Echo had a very desirable sounding preamp. It was an analog circuit that added a nice girth to the signal and could actually be cranked up to give you saturation as well. And you can recreate all those effects in the Galaxy pedal. So let's take a closer look at what's going on inside this pedal. Now, like all the UA effects pedals, we've got stereo in and stereo output. Or actually, to be more accurate, we have two inputs and two outputs, and those can be used as mono in, mono out, stereo in, stereo out, mono in, stereo out, or dual mono as well, along with the controls that you'd expect, which include the echo rate or the echo time, feedback, which is the number of repeats, and the echo volume. We also have an input volume that allows you to drive the input stage, that preamp that we were talking about earlier on the original Space Echo. We also have two knobs for controlling the reverb. We've got a dwell, which sets the signal that's feeding into the reverb and allows you to drive that harder as well. And then we've got a reverb volume for blending the amount of reverb back in with your signal. We have three additional parameters that you can access as well, and those are here under the main Alt switch. We move that switch down to Alt. Now the input volume becomes tape age. And one of the characteristics of the original Space Echo is that it had quite a bit of wow and flutter, and as the tape aged, you get additional distortion effects as well, if you will. And you can control the amount of that with the tape edge. It almost adds a chorusing effect to the delay tail. The alternate control under the dwell is bass for the echo repeats. And likewise under reverb volume, the alternate parameter is treble for the reverb repeats. So you can shape those to make them sit well behind your dry guitar signal. Speaking of the dry guitar signal, the Galaxy passes your dry guitar signal directly straight through. It's not converted into digital. Only the affected signal is converted to digital. So we have analog dry through here. And in fact, by turning the delay volume or echo volume all the way up, you can kill the dry and just have the repeats audible. The final control we need to be aware of on the front panel is the head select control, and this determines which of the three tape heads are actually active. And we can also get those in different combinations, as we'll see. So let's listen to these different combinations. First, we'll turn the reverb volume down, so all that we're hearing is the echo. Our setting right now is dotted 16th in reference to the tap tempo. The second head gives us a dotted 8th in reference to the tap tempo. Next, we have quarter note, or right on the tap tempo. Press again, and we get the first two heads in combination, so dotted 16th and dotted 8th, referenced against the tap tempo. Second and third heads together. First and third. And finally, all three tape heads active. Now, each of these settings is useful for different musical applications. So, for example, we can go back to the straight quarter note. And again, we can increase the amount of tape age. Or we can clean that tape up. A lot of the beauty of the Space Echo and the Galaxy pedals when we get that tape edge cranked up a bit. I like it set to about, 2 o'clock on the dial. As I mentioned, that's almost like a chorusing effect on the repeats, but it also gives sort of a bloom to the repeats as well. It's a really beautiful effect. So let's go back here to our main settings. And if we choose some of the combinations, here's first and second together. First and third. Now we can choose to kill the dry and just listen to the delay effect. Let's go back to the quarter note for this next one. It's a really cool effect that it provides a unique ambience to musical parts that you're playing. We'll scroll that back, blend in some dry signal again. Now we can shape those repeats. We can, for example, bring the bass down, bring the treble down. That really makes the repeats sit back behind your dry guitar signal. If we bring up the treble, leave the bass down, you can hear that the repeats cut through much more. They become a much more prominent part of the effect. Now let's bring the reverb back in, which adds a lot of ambience to the signal. There's so many great sounds available inside the Galaxy pedal. It's super flexible. Now, there's more to it than just the controls on the knobs and the switches at the top of the front panel. We also have 2 foot switches, and these can be configured in a variety of different ways using the accompanying mobile app. There's Bluetooth in the Galaxy pedal that allows you to access that directly from your mobile device. There's also a USB port on it that allows you to install firmware updates, for example, and so on. But those 2 foot switches, the left-hand switch can be configured for effect on and off. The right-hand switch can be tap tempo. If we hold that switch, we'll engage what's called a performance effect. There are 2 different performance effects available. The first of these is feedback swell, where we increase the amount of feedback going into the delay until it starts to self-oscillate. This creates a bunch of unique effects, and when you let go of that foot switch, it also tends to oscillate off in different directions. Check this out. Lots of cool real-time effects there. The second way to use that hold performance function is to engage an echo rate ramp, which means that we're speeding up the echo rate, and that's going to tend to change the pitch, so you get this rising, swirling kind of effect. You can also set this up where the left and the right foot switches individually turn off the reverb and the delay effects, so you can access those separately from within the Galaxy pedal. One of the fun things about the Galaxy pedal is just plugging into it and playing can give you all new effects because it sort of responds very dynamically to what you're doing. It'll pop in and out. It'll give you a wider stereo image if you're playing in stereo. It'll sort of respond to what's happening. And again, that's a characteristic of the original Space Echo as well, is it's a very dynamic type of an effect. And with that extra tape age that you can add in there, the way you can shape the repeats, there are a ton of different tonal options for creating the ultimate ambience for your performances. It's a really fun pedal. I highly encourage you to check this out. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater.